What you are about to see will shock you. No camera tricks, no special effects, nothing but incredible moments from the heroic to the tragic on Wild and Crazy, caught on tape, location Russia. If you're like us, you probably don't see nearly enough grain truck accidents. Well, thankfully, that's about to change. This unlucky grain truck is about to discharge its payload. Who could imagine that the old ramp would choose this moment to collapse? Miraculously, the driver escaped without injury. At midnight one night, the inhabitants of a Moscow apartment building were woken up by strange sounds. A rescue team was trying to remove a man stuck in a ventilation shaft. It took them nearly an hour and a half to finally succeed. The rescuers took several breaks to catch their breath and give the poor fellow some rest. Finally, his dust-laden head appears in the top of the narrow shaft. The man thanks the rescue brigade and tells the police a rather unlikely story. He says that he and his parents live next door. He claims that he went to the attic to rescue his kitten and dove into the ventilation shaft because he was frightened by a stranger on the roof. Suspicious, the police conducted a little investigation. It turned out that the rescued man was a notorious burglar. He'd attempted to rob an apartment through the ventilation shaft. Suddenly, the burglar flees the scene. The exhausted police officers quickly shift from rescue to pursuit mode. The police officers were furious. They chased him down and apprehended the filthy, dusty, lying lout. And now he's gone from his cozy air shaft to slightly roomier accommodations. A prison cell for the next 2 years. It's amazing what people will do to avoid paying the fare. After getting heavily intoxicated, this guy climbed up on the trolleybus ladder. Such stunts are extremely risky, especially when you're 8 or 9 sheets to the wind. It would be almost too easy for this yahoo to fall off the bus and get smashed by the next car back. It's a good thing this footage is over, because he could just as easily have fallen off this bridge. These are not city guerrillas, but rather members of an extreme team in St. Petersburg. They get their kicks doing this sort of thing around the city. It's great fun, especially until someone gets a hot seat from the 600 volts coursing through those wires. Kids, don't ever try this at home. If you don't trust us, trust the stuntman. It's a well-known fact that drunken men aren't exactly known for their great judgment. This goes double for drunken paratroopers. In this case, in the city of Nizhny Novgorod, after celebrating their retirement, they decided, as you can see, to climb a statue of Lenin. As you will also see in a moment, these stunts often come to a bad end. Such is the case with this poor bugger. His head hit the base of the monument with full force. The collision knocked him out cold. Thankfully, a lot of vodka and a tough skull may well have conspired to save this retired soldier's life. Let's take another look. Coming up next on Wild and Crazy, caught on tape. A lover spat in the middle of an intersection. An unconventionally clogged toilet. A horse without any horse sense. On Wild and Crazy, caught on tape, location Russia. Forget about horsepower. A young man tried to start his engine with the help of a little manpower. Take a look. He stumbles on a slippery clay and the car drags him down. Looks like he lets go just in time. The scary thing is that this probably wasn't much of an accident. More likely, two young guys simply decided to shoot their own real auto stunts and used an old car that just happened to be nearby. You think their uncle liked the film? It was his car that was totaled for no particular reason. This lover's spat took place at a traffic intersection. One minute the couple was quarreling. The next they were reconciling. Captivated by a storm of passion, they ignored the passing cars, which infuriated the public. The girl decides to leave and stops a cab. Will our Romeo and Juliet really separate and never meet again? What do you think? While in a moving vehicle, the lover pulls his girl out of the car. Oh yes, love truly does exist in the world. Clearly, these two were meant to be, arguing, and then making out. Sorry, as this is a family show, there'll be no close-ups at this time. The Russian snowmobile can be a temperamental machine. This merry winter reveler has enough courage, or enough alcohol in his belly, to take a ride on this bucket of bolts. There's a ramp up ahead. All of a sudden, the snowmobile loses a ski, and then the hood flies off, followed in short order by the sledge at the back. Within seconds, the snowmobile is completely destroyed, and the remaining parts are scattered on the field. In a way, our merry stuntman got rather lucky despite the total loss of his vehicle. Here we have some amateur footage. Basically, a young man bought a new pool cue and decided to see what it was made of. Remember, dangerous stunts with large stick-like implements usually end up a lot worse than this. Keeping your balance on a horse can be even more difficult than on a pool cue. Here we see that amateur riders can fall off just as elegantly as professionals. No animals were injured during the filming of this footage. There were a few bruised egos, however. And a few bruised other things. While no horses were harmed here, I'm afraid we can't say the same about the people. This next video montage can be seen as a public service announcement to convince people to quit smoking. In reality, it's just some friends tricking each other by putting firecrackers in their smokes. A bit much just to get their friends to quit smoking, but funny nonetheless. An unfortunate incident happened to mountain climbers in the Caucasian Mountains at the height of about 6,000 or 7,000 feet. After hiking up the mountain, they begin their descent. On their way down, the climbers inadvertently cause an avalanche. Luckily for all involved, it wasn't a very big one, but it did have some serious consequences. The snow knocked one of the girls off her feet and dragged her along for several yards. Fortunately, the girl was not seriously injured. She suffered a few bruises and tore her pants. That's one cold tush. You can see the trace that the mini avalanche left behind. If the slope was any steeper and the spring snow wasn't as sticky, that's one mountain climber who may not have made it home. Large animals often fall into gaps in the road, open sewers, and wells. Such was the case here. A horse falls into a ditch and can't get out. The girl who owns the horse starts calling for help. Virtually the entire male population of the small village comes out to rescue the animal. They tie ropes around the horse's neck and legs and begin dragging it out. It's a long and difficult process. Eventually, the frightened animal is free. In a few minutes, the horse will regain consciousness, get back on its feet, and go home. The vet assured the owner that the horse would make a full recovery. Emergency dispatchers will tell you that each rescue call is a unique one. Turns out this one's no exception. This elderly woman never imagined she'd find herself in such a, let's say, delicate situation. Her story began innocently enough. She decided to clean her toilet. Here's where it gets weird. The jar she's using for scooping out water gets stuck, along with her hand. The woman screams for help for quite a while. A neighbor eventually hears her and calls for a rescue squad. Unfortunately, in order to set her hand free, they had to break the toilet. The old woman seems to be in shock. Perhaps she's wondering, how did I actually let them film me with my hand stuck in a toilet? After all was said and done, the evil toilet was completely destroyed, but the ill-fated jar was still in one piece.